Hello, today we will talk about the change in forest community in Point Pleasant Park after Hurricane Juan. Point Pleasant Park is a 75-hectare naturalized forest located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. It is a park that is home to various species of trees, such as red spruce, white pine, red maple, and balsam fir. It holds significant importance for the Mi'kmaq community because the Mi'kmaq name for it means the place of spirits. It was and still is a place for Mi'kmaq people to gather, meaning it is a place full of Mi'kmaq history. On September 29, 2003, Hurricane Juan, a Category 2 hurricane, came and severely impacted Point Pleasant Park. It saw winds of 151 kilometers an hour, which caused serious damage to the park. 70% of the forest canopy was lost, and the park had to be shut down for 8 months after in order to assess and evaluate the damage. Secondary succession is a disturbance in the environment that does not completely remove the plants and soil that are present. Climax community is the point after succession when a community reaches an equilibrium after a disturbance in the environment. Linear regression is a statistical method used to compare different variables. Density is the number of individuals of a species in a certain area. Shannon Diversity Index measures abundance and evenness in a population. DBH is the diameter of breast height, which was measured for individual trees. This study used data collected by ecology students at Dalhousie University of diameter of breast height, Shannon Diversity Index, red spruce density, and red maple density in order to determine how the community of trees changed in the years after Hurricane Juan. It also aimed to determine if the forest was in early, mid, or late succession. For our null hypotheses for each community metric, we said there is no change in the metric over time. For our alternative hypotheses, we predict that as the forest heads towards its climax community, there will be a decrease in diversity, an increase in density, and a change in the DBH.
The experiment was run and performed by Biology 2060 students in Point Pleasant Park. The students measured the diameter of the breast height and counted the number of trees in each of the 6 duplicate sites. The sites were chosen because they were the most impacted forest structure sites by the 2003 hurricane. Only the trees with DBHs of 2.5 or higher were counted in the experiment. They used a measuring tape to measure the DBHs, and Donnelly's book from 1960 called Identification of Nova Scotia Woody Plants to help identify the trees. The collected data includes total and specific species density, species richness, species evenness, and DBH. All data analyzed in our presentation was analyzed using Excel, and all the graphs were created by the Ecology 2060 lab teaching team. The statistical analysis of the data was done by linear regression analysis because it shows the relationship, either positive or negative, between all our dependent variables and the time since the hurricane occurred, which allows the prediction of future changes to the habitat. This allows us to explore the ecological progression of ecological succession in Point Pleasant Park post-Hurricane Juan and its effects over time in all our variables.
Hello everyone, today I'm excited to share insights into the changing dynamics of the forest community and how we can predict its future trajectory using linear regression analysis. To begin, let's delve into how the overall forest community has evolved over time and the factors driving these changes. Our journey starts with understanding the methods employed and the rationale behind utilizing linear regression analysis. Linear regression was chosen due to its suitability for examining trends over time in continuous data, such as tree density and size. By fitting a linear model to the data, researchers can assess the direction and magnitude of changes in forest community characteristics over a study period. Now let's explore the factors influencing forest dynamics and how we interpret the results of linear regression analysis. The total density of trees may fluctuate due to various factors like natural disturbances, hurricanes, human impacts, such as COVID-19 pandemic. Fluctuations in the tree density and size can be attributed to ecological successes, processes, competition for resources, and external disturbances. The DBH index may exhibit temporal patterns reflecting changes in forest composition and structure over time. Understanding these ecological succession processes specific to the forest type under study is crucial for interpreting linear regression results. Factors such as soil quality, climate condition, and species interaction influence the trajectory of forest development.
The density of red spruce and red maple both increased from 2004 to 2023. The slope of each graph indicates the rate at which each tree species changed over time after the hurricane. For both dominant species, the slope is positive. Red maple has a higher slope than red spruce, as seen in Figure 4, which indicates a faster and higher rate of change for density over time for the red maple species. The red spruce species has a slower and less notable slope, meaning a less notable and slower rate of change. The relationship between these two dominant species has been positive since the hurricane in 2003. Both species of trees show their resilience through the increase in density after Hurricane Juan hit. Red spruce was the dominant tree species in 2004 since it was more dominant in earlier succession. The dominant species then shifted to red maple in 2023 since it is more dominant in later succession. The shift in dominance of the tree species over time represents a secondary succession. The shift in dominance was due to a shift towards the species better adapted for progression of succession. Red maple is also known as a generalist species, so they are very easily adaptable, which gave it an advantage. This means that red maples can tolerate a wide range of conditions and habitats. As the dominant tree species move toward their climax community, their growth rate will begin to slow down and plateau, which leads to a reduction of growth of other species, since there are less resources for new and unestablished species. The reduction of resources occurs because the dominant trees are able to grow upwards to gain more sunlight than other species. The non-dominant species lose resources like light because of this. Only the species that have adapted to low light conditions will survive. Once the climax community is reached, the community diversity becomes stable and unchanged. Dominant species such as the red spruce and red maple will move into later successional species, however, they stay dominant in the urban forest. The disturbance from the hurricane will initially lead to a higher diversity and stabilization compared to the original forest distribution in Point Pleasant Park.
Figure 4 shows the regression analysis of the Shannon Diversity Index of the forest community of Point Pleasant Park in order to determine how the abundance of trees changed in the years after Hurricane Juan. The results of the regression analysis shows that species abundance increased significantly between 2004 to 2023 with an R-squared value of 0.36 and a p-value of 1.6 times 10 to the negative 8. This tells us that there is high diversity in the community of trees in Point Pleasant Park. According to Burley et al., hurricanes can remove tree species pre-succession, which then leaves what they call shade-tolerant species to grow in their place, which then leads to rapid growth in the population, meaning a higher diversity. This would mean that there is secondary succession in the community after the hurricane because the disturbance was not able to remove all the vegetation that was in Point Pleasant Park, leaving the species that were left to grow in their stay. As the forest community heads to its species climax, the Shannon diversity will decrease because newer species will become more widespread until the other species are less abundant.
To conclude our presentation today, I'm going to pass along a few notes. Um, the Acadian forest is most likely to be in the mid-succession, and that is determined by the following factors: having stable species, having a developed canopy, trees and plants, having a complex habitat. It does show that it has passed the early stage of succession and is trying to climb towards the late stage of succession. And it's influenced by human activities such as land use, management intervention, and presence of edge effects. Now, the urban park effects on succession, they include fragmentation and edge effects. Urbanization usually leads to creation of fragmented habitats and edges between the natural and the urban developments. These edges alter microclimates, increase light penetration, and facilitates the establishment of invasive species. Human activities can be considered as human disturbances. Now, recreational activities and infrastructure developments within urban parks often result in soil compaction disturbance. So, soil compaction, what it does is it impedes the plant regeneration and alters the soil nutrient cycling, which thus affects the long term trajectory of succession of the park. We also want to take note of the Mi'kmaq's traditional knowledge They have gained these knowledge over the past centuries from doing practices and observing the natural ecosystem on a daily basis from generation to generation. Now, these strategies that they have been doing, it does prove that it helps with the restoration and conservation of the ecosystem. And now, using the scientific approach, we do understand them better and understand that their ways have more benefits than what we have been doing. So, it does enrich our comprehension of the ecosystem. And by embracing that knowledge that they give us, we can have a better culturally respectful approach to manage the park.
We would like to acknowledge the lab teaching staff of Section B03, Emily Kettis and Allison Schmidt, for supporting this presentation. We thank the previous Biology 2060 students for collecting and analyzing the data for us to use. We acknowledge that Dalhousie is located on ancestral and unceded territory of the traditional Mi'kmaq people, and we recognize the African Nova Scotians, who are distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched Nova Scotia for 400 years.
These are the references that were used in our study. Question 1 asked what is contributing to the increase in diversity as time goes on, and why does diversity increase even as the dominant species are becoming more abundant? The answer to what is contributing to the increase in diversity as time goes on is that after Hurricane Juan, Point Pleasant Park was able to support a wide range of tree species because they were able to access new resources, meaning tree diversity could increase over the years. The answer to why does diversity increase even as the dominant species are becoming more abundant is that even as dominant species become more abundant, other species can become abundant as well by being able to tolerate different environmental conditions. For example, balsam firs, a tree species that is present in Point Pleasant Park, can tolerate various soil acidities as well as different nutrient and light availability.
As mentioned before, red maples are known as a generalist species, meaning they are easily adaptable to various conditions. They are even more flexible to a wider range of conditions since they are dominant in later succession. Later successional species such as red maple are larger when matured than early successional species, giving them an advantage in gaining more resources such as sunlight and nutrients because of their more extensive root system. Later successional species also grow slower than earlier successional trees such as red spruce, giving them the advantage of being more stable and more developed when fully grown. The most significant factor that would give red maple an advantage is adapting to a broader range of habitats in that later successional species are shade tolerant. This allows the saplings to thrive without a lot of sunlight, whereas red spruce is shade intolerant, so their saplings need sunlight to grow. Shade tolerance is vital in determining the order of succession, since the habitat you live in and the conditions you can survive in depend on light levels. This allows red maple to adapt better to more conditions than red spruce.
Controlled burns are deliberate fires managed by professionals in controlled conditions, which are a vital tool for managing urban parks. These controlled fires serve multiple purposes, with vegetation management being a primary objective. By strategically burning away excess vegetation, including invasive species, controlled burns help maintain the ecological balance within the park. Moreover, controlled burns play a crucial role in mitigating fire hazards. By reducing the accumulation of combustible materials like dead vegetation, these intentional fires minimize the risk of uncontrolled wildfires within the urban park areas. In terms of ecological succession, controlled burns influence the dynamic process of plant and animal community development over time. Following a burn, fire adapted species quickly colonize the open areas, initiating early stages of succession. Over time, as the ecosystem recovers and matures, a succession of species occur, ultimately leading to a diverse and stable community.